Detention, torture, and the execution of dissident members. The UN Human Rights Watch report in 2005 on the Mujahideen Khalq organization is infused with such terms. Unlike previous reports which focused primarily on the organization's terrorist and intelligence operations, the 2005 report was an analysis of the organization's inner workings. The report accused the organization of treating its members non-democratically, and this frightened the MKO.
A number of witnesses who were detained and tortured inside the MKO camps named Hassan Izzati as one of their interrogators. Hassan Izzati's son, Yasser Izzati, also interviewed for this report, confirmed his father's identity as an MKO interrogator.
وقتی که رفتم آلمان یه سری از بچه‌هایی که قبل از من تونسته بودن به هر نحوی فرار کنن و این سازمان جدا بشن خاطراتی از پدرم تعریف می‌کردن که اسم مستعارش نریمان بود. از اینکه وقتی که اینا اعلام جدایی میکردن از سازمان مثلا پدرم میومد اینا رو لخت میکرد، بازرسی بدنی میکرد و اینکه به هر حال سازمان پدرم رو یه قربانی کرده بود و اینکه مثلا کسایی که میخوان جدا بشن اینا مأمورن، افراد عضو سپاهن، افرادی عضو وزارت اطلاعات هستن و این خب پدر من نمیشه فکر کنه که این حرف درسته اشتباهه و سرسپردگیشو به رجوی نشون میداد و اینا رو مورد اذیت و آزار و شکنجه و به هر حال کتک و اینجور کارا رو انجام میداد.
البته اعضایی که می اومدن اونجا از بچهای اطلاعات سازمان مجاهدین که از اونا بازجویی میکردن یه چند نفر ثابت بودن که یکیش اسم سیدعلی بود، یکیش هم حسن محصل بود، یکی اسم مستعار داشت به نام بهش میگفتن نریمان ولی اسم واقعیش رو کنم حسن عزتی بود. اینا این ترکیب ثابت بودن که از بچه‌ها بازجویی میکردن، از افرادی که اون چیز بودن قسمت بودن اینا بازجویی میکردن.
دو راه بیشتر نداشت، یکی مرگ بود یا باید مرگ رو انتخاب میکردی با اینا در میافتادی میگفتی دیگه حالا یا میمیرم یا میرفتی جلوتر میگفتی حالا بریم جلوتر ببینم چی میشه. من تو این نقطه که یه بار امتحان کرده بودم دیدم نه، یعنی مرگم قطعیه، هیچ راهی نیست که من از اون اشرف بیام بیرون.
از دوران کودکی اون چیزی که یادم میاد
According to my childhood memories, my mother was a teacher, not a political activist. My father, for some personal reasons, decided to cooperate with the MKO.
با سازمان مجاهدین همکاری کنم. حدوداً سال 63-64 بود که
I guess it was 1984 or so when my parents and I, along with another married couple, Farah Shaybani, and her husband Mohammad Shaybani, headed towards Kurdistan border.
حرکت کردیم به سمت مرز کردستان.
Yasser Izzati was 3 years old when his father decided he and his mother would be going to Ashraf garrison in Iraq during Saddam's regime. A decision that triggered an avalanche of misfortunes for the Izzati family.
In Ashraf garrison, there were around 800 children from newborn babies to adolescents. After a while, a rumor circulated that some children were being sent abroad, and as a result, the number of children was dropping or going to drop. Later on, when we grew up, we realized that at that time ideological divorce was being enforced. Children could prevent spouses from getting a divorce, so we were being sent abroad. This way, the organization could implement the ideological divorce plan successfully and subsequently prevent spouses from meeting each other. Children were the only link that could reconnect separated parents. Finally, we went to Jordan by bus. Near Jordan's airport, we stayed in a hotel booked by the organization for about 2 weeks.
که حدوداً 2 هفته اونجا بودیم. بعد توسط پاسپورت‌های بچه‌های هوادار خارج از کشور.
Then with passports belonging to MKO supporters living abroad, we flew to predetermined countries.
During the MKO ideological revolution, Hassan Izzati separates from his wife, Akram Qadimul Ayyam, while his son Yasser struggled with the adverse effects of Rajavi's methodology. His methodology is defined in the UN Human Rights Watch report as such.
The MKO's leadership consists of the husband and wife team of Masoud and Maryam Rajavi. Their marriage in 1985 was hailed by the organization as the beginning of a permanent ideological revolution. Various phases of this revolution include divorce by decree of married couples, regular writings of self-criticism reports, renunciation of sexuality, and absolute mental and physical dedication to the leadership. The level of devotion expected of members was in stark display in 2003 when the French police arrested Maryam Rajavi in Paris. In protest, 10 MKO members and sympathizers set themselves on fire in various European cities. 2 of them subsequently died. Nine former members cite the implementation of the ideological revolution as a major source of the psychological and physical abuses committed against the group's members.
Later on, we realized that the organization intended to gather children from all over the country and bring them up according to its own ideology. The organization was reluctant to see us being brought up as foreigners.
که با این دروغ ما را آوردن به کشور آلمان شهر کلن.
So we were summoned to Cologne, Germany. I was 16 years old then.
16 سالم بود که یه روز مسئول آلمان که تعویض شده بود زنی بود به نام پری مشفقنیا.
One day, our new supervisor in Germany named Peri Moshfeghniyar brought me my mother's last will and testament. My mother was a victim of Rajavi's warmongering. She said my mother had lost her life for the organization's cause and I had to avenge her death.
این وصیت‌نامه مادرم رو من خیلی تاثیر گذاشت و خب
My mother's last will and testament had a great impact on me. Long story short, we returned to Ashraf garrison in Iraq.
But when Yasser decides to leave the organization, he enters a new phase of his life. He and his fellow men never imagined they would have to pay such a heavy price for their decision.
The former MKO members reported abuses ranging from detention and persecution of ordinary members wishing to leave the organization to lengthy solitary confinements, severe beatings, and torture of dissident members.
زمانی که مثلا من اعلام کردم که میخوام از سازمان خروج بشم و
When I announced my intentions to separate from the organization, my father slapped me hard across the face, warning me not to do any such thing. I realized then that we were deprived of freedom of choice. We had to obey the organization's orders.
چیزی که برای من خیلی عجیب بود
Strangely enough, my father had changed into a staunch member of the organization. He would do whatever was to the benefit of the organization.
سازمان براش منفعت داشت به نفع سازمانمون رو انجام میداد. از سلام نکردناش چند بار مثلا من میرفتم پیشش سلام میکردم، خیلی سرد جواب میداد.
He seemed cold and distant when I went to see him. In festivals and ceremonies, he would always ignore me to portray himself as a loyal member to the organization. He was a victim of Rajavi's cult. He was brainwashed.
رجوی بود که بهاش شستشوی مغزی داده شده بود. منو به یک اتاقی دوباره به همون سلول قبلی که
I was taken to solitary confinement, which they called exit. I spent 14 months there.
14 ماه انفرادی توی همون اتاق بودم.
The fall of Saddam's regime was good news for the Iraqi people. It opened a window to the outer world for those imprisoned in the bowels of the MKO garrison.
کلاً بعد از حمله آمریکایی‌ها به عراق همه مشاهده کردیم که طی پیام‌های مختلف مسئول رجوی گفت که موازات آمریکایی می‌خوایم حرکت کنیم. کتابخونه‌ها تصفیه شد، کتابایی که مربوط به آمریکا و ضد امپریالیستی و از این شعارهای سازمان بود همه جمع‌آوری شد و همه تقریباً توجیه شدیم که به موازات آمریکایی خطوط استراتژیک سازمان باید چیده بشه.
یه روز من نشسته بودم تو اتاقم که دیدم در محکم باز شد و
One day I was sitting in my room when the door flew open and some servicemen came in. In one quick glance I noticed they were wearing army uniforms with no badges on their shoulders or arms.
و خب شایعاتی هم من شنیدم که انگار FBI وارد شده. خلاص اینا با من صحبت کردن، اینا گفتن که
Rumor had it that the FBI had entered the garrison. They asked about my identity. I told them that I wanted to separate from the organization. They told me that they would transfer those who wanted to separate from the organization to another place and then to a foreign country. They said I could join them.
و تو هم اگه میخوای بیا.
Yasser was released and went to Europe. The UN Human Rights Watch interviewed him and mentioned his name in a report.
After the first 6 months in Iraq, I realized I had no desire to stay. In Europe, I had an image of a democratic organization. But in Iraq, I realized the extent of censorship and control. I wanted to leave. I was repeatedly told the only way out was to go to Iran. I was too afraid to go to Iran.
My name is Mohammed Reza Gholi. I'm from a village near Sari. I got my school diploma from Sari and I'm 51 years old. In 1985, I received an invitation from a relative who was studying in Germany. So I went to Germany. My intention for staying there was to attend university. Financial problems and visa restrictions made me return home after a month. I spent a few years in Iran after my return, and in 1988 I went to Istanbul looking for a job. I was also waiting for an opportunity to apply to a university. However, in Istanbul I met MKO members. They gave me a number of journals to read for a short time. Then I joined the association. For a while we were working in Istanbul by going to crowded places and distributing journals and giving the organization's address to those who had come from Iran. It was after the Chel Chirag operation, when I was dispatched to the zone. I remained in Iraq and continued activities related to the organization.
24 years inside Ashraf garrison had made a professional organization member out of Mohammad Reza Gholi. His mentality was that of a man who's lived in a cult. He knew very little about the outside world. Ashraf garrison. On the other side of the walls, Mohammad Reza's brothers wait, hoping to see him. But they are not allowed in. On the other side, Mohammad Reza toils endlessly.
During Saddam's regime, we were equipped with weapons and therefore we were involved in armed activities. But when Saddam was removed from power, we were deprived of arms. So we shuffled the cards by engaging in social activities. That's what I did within the organization. We would invite between 5,000 to 10,000 people to the garrison every day, and we would give them books and pamphlets to feed them politically. We held long discussions in order to convince them that even in Iraq, their real enemy is the Islamic Republic of Iran, and that although the US had occupied the country, it was not their real enemy.
After a while, the number of MKO members who wanted to leave the organization began to increase. Mohammad Reza had a new mission. Now he had to watch over his like-minded friends who had to be kept apart from other MKO members for one reason or another. The International Human Rights Organization has frequently reported on MKO prisons inside the garrison. In response to all the criticism, MKO leaders have said these facilities are not prisons, but just quarantines.
We tried to convince them that Ashraf prisons were in fact quarantines, despite the fact that reports released by international organizations described them as what they really are. I was, for a while, in charge of one part of these prisons. In fact, I was a jailer. We would take dissident members into rooms and lock them up, and then a team from the intelligence service would come and interrogate them.
One of these prisoners was Mohammad Reza Mobayyen.
این بحث انفرادی تا 28/12/76.
I was kept in solitary confinement for 5 months and 15 days. During this period, I was taken outside the cell only for midnight interrogations. The first day, I was beaten, but to be honest, on other days, most of the abuse was verbal rather than physical. Anyway, during these 6 months, I was tortured physically and emotionally. About 3 months after my detention, they told me that I had immigrated to Iraq illegally. Therefore, if I wanted to separate from the organization, I had to spend 8 years in Abu Ghraib prison in Iraq. I refuted that by saying I had entered Iraq with the passport they gave me. They denied it, accusing me of illegal immigration.
Being accused of illegal immigration to Iraq, some members were transferred to Abu Ghraib prison, a place where MKO dissident members were held. During Saddam's regime, they were labeled Mujahideen Safekeeping by the MKO itself.
During Saddam Hussein's last year in power, some Iranians held in Abu Ghraib prison were repatriated to Iran in exchange for Iraqi prisoners of war. These were dissident members of the MKO who had been sent by the organization for safekeeping in Abu Ghraib. The release of these prisoners in 2002 and 2003 provided a direct window into conditions inside the MKO camps that was previously inaccessible to the outside world.
One of Mohammad Reza's activities in Ashraf Garrison was singing. He had a good singing voice, so he decided to go on the organization's official TV channel called Azadi TV in order to send a message to his family.
During my first 7 years in the organization, my family was looking for me. Unfortunately, like other MKO members, I was not allowed to have contact with my family. The organization's excuse was that we were involved in an intelligence and military war with Iran. We could write to our family, but unfortunately, the organization never posted our letters.
شروع کردم از همون سال 76 که بعد از زندان آزاد شدم دیگه قرار شد بمونم توی اشرف.
I was released from prison in 1997. The lesser of the two evils was to stay in Ashraf Garrison, so I started going to their singing activities, hoping somehow it would help my family find out where I was. That is the story of my singing. By the way, my voice was better than that of others.
تا اینکه همین خانواده من بعدن که اومدم بعد از 10 سال ایران.
After 10 years, a relative I used to go to the mountains with called them and told them he'd seen me on Azadi TV. It was the first time in 7 years that my family had received news about me.
In another corner of Ashraf Garrison, Mohammad Reza Gholi, the MKO prison warden, is making big, life-changing decisions.
What occupied a lot of my thoughts was this. If this system was based on democracy, why did some members want to escape? Why didn't they tell the authorities that they wanted to leave the organization? I concluded that members that had been working for the organization for 20 to 30 years were under some kind of pressure that prevented them from asking permission to leave.
Mohammad Reza, who once watched over MKO dissident members as a prison warden, has now joined them. He had experienced the ordeals members had been through and sympathized with them. He knew that there was just one way to leave Ashraf Garrison: to flee. Finally, with the help of his friend, Mohammad Reza planned his escape.
I am Ghaffar Balafkande, and I am 34 years old. I live in a village near Fuman city in northern Iran. I was a high school student in Fuman before I dropped out. I was studying industrial electronics.
In 2001, Ghaffar left Iran for Turkey in the hope of finding a more lucrative job. It was in Istanbul where he met MKO recruiters. They suggested he go to Iraq and ask the MKO to facilitate his immigration to Europe. Ghaffar took the bait. A short time later, he found himself in Ashraf garrison.
In the early days of my stay in the garrison, they told me that they didn't have a job for me. I reminded them that they took me there promising me a job and the chance to go abroad. They went back on their promises. I began protesting. They warned me if I kept protesting, I would be sent to an MKO prison for 2 years and then to Abu Ghraib for 8 years, till my information would render useless. I spent 10 years in Ashraf garrison. During that time, they told us everyone was free to leave the organization. They told us that entering the organization was difficult, but leaving it was not. But it was the exact opposite. It was easy to enter the organization, but incredibly difficult to leave it.